I think level of concern is high on all fronts. I'm a climate tech investor, so I spend my days focused on the climate crisis. So that's the one I guess would come to the forefront, and the one I've dedicated my career to. So, yeah. I think these are systemic problems, and that's a huge issue. And so you have some solutions in the case of the climate crisis that are tackling a very particular technology issue. We need to have a breakthrough technologically in order for something to move forward and to reduce CO2 emissions or other kinds of greenhouse gas emissions. But then you have other problems, like one of the portfolio companies in our fund, Kopa Ventures, is Klim, and they're focused on a platform for helping farmers switch to regenerative agriculture practices. And there technology is important, but it's more about getting a collective community involved and a switch and enabling finance to come into that situation. So yeah, it's very important to have all of it with these polycrisis situations that are systemic changes that require lots of different players moving and changing across the spectrum. And my answer, I'm in venture capital, so my answer will be different from a pure impact investor. We're an impact venture capital fund, so we have a little bit more flexibility than say just standard blue chip, I guess, venture capital fund. But you have different requirements across different kinds of investors. So for some impact investors, they're going to be looking for very specific impact measurements, and they're going to be a little less careful about how much return are we actually talking about here? Like, we just want to recoup our money might be one of the attitudes you might see. For us, we are looking for significant returns for our investors and who have invested our funds. And so it's really important from that perspective to know who your customer is and what their pain point is. I find with a lot of impact or climate tech founders, they're very focused on the climate impact and the climate pain point, which is really important, and that can feed into a customer pain point. But it's really important to tie that climate impact to someone who's willing to pay. Unfortunately, we're still working within that framework, and that still is how a company is going to scale and have massive growth in our current capitalistic system. So tying that going from climate to what are the regulatory forces, what are the consumer preferences, these very strong ties that are pulling corporates or other kinds of buyers to actually make these choices, and it's a pain point, is a huge problem and issue. And that's more on the side when you're looking at the venture capital side and they're looking for those 10x returns on their investment and so on and so forth.